So now that we have that, we have Vuforia set up, we have our package set up, we have everything set up. We will go to scenes and we will right click, we'll create, and then we'll go to create new scene. And we'll say this is test, or we'll say project 1. So we have project 1, and we'll just double click it, and you'll notice how it went from this is now project 1 right here. And so in order to create an augmented reality app without code, we need to set up an environment that allows us to make augmented reality stuff possible. And so in order to do that, you have to, one, use Vuforia, and which really allows for the augmented reality experience to be more accessible without coding. And we just play with a few of the different components that come with Vuforia. So one thing that we can do is we right click and we go down to where it says Vuforia Engine, and we do an AR camera. So AR camera, that's augmented reality camera. That's essentially supposed to mimic the camera that we have. And so by doing that, we are able to have a camera that acts as the camera on our phone device. And it's going to essentially control where the experience is. And also before we start, I'm actually going to change the ratio. So you'll see that we have a game view here. And so this game view is the actual view of our camera. And so anything that we see on this screen right here is what we're going to see on our phone. And so in order to do that, we're going to see, okay, if I have a phone, how am I going to be using the phone? Am I going to use it in landscape, or am I going to use it in portrait? For this experience, I want to actually use it in landscape. And so I'll change it from portrait to landscape. And most devices are 1080p. And so one thing that we can do with this is we can actually predetermine this. And so we want to say most devices are going to be high definition 1920 by 1080. And so we just want to make sure that's defined already so that we know exactly what the experience will be. And defining these right now allows us to make our experience more scalable because we have a base to set up with. And so typically I use 1280 by 720, or I'll use 1920 by 1080. And so I'll just click 1920 by 1080, and this allows me to have this. So because this is a landscape view, I will probably want to change the aspect ratio and put it up here just to make it a little bit easier. Another thing that we can do is we go back to our file build settings and player settings, and we will go to resolution and presentation. And with that resolution and presentation, we go to orientation, and the default orientation we could change to landscape right, just like that. If we do landscape right, then that also defines it. And so even if we turn our phone to the side and we turn our phone to upright, it's not going to change. It's going to be a specific resolution that we're using. And so we have that set up. Cool. So the next thing that we want to do is make sure that we save our project. So we'll just go to save, and then we'll go to save project, just so all the progress that we made up until this point is not in vain. So now that we have our AR camera, we're going to set up a ground plane. So we'll just go to ground plane. We'll go to find plane or plane finder, and we'll click that. Then we'll also go to Vuforia Engine, ground plane, and ground plane stage. So these are the three things that we need: AR camera, plane finder, ground plane stage. And so with this main camera, we really don't need it. And so we could actually delete this. So just right click and delete. And with this, you'll notice that with the AR camera, we have our main camera as a tag. And so that just lets us know that this is going to be our main camera. And the one that we deleted is just the one that we deleted. We could have our directional light as well. And we'll kind of go from there. With all the lighting, we don't have to worry about that too much, just because really the foundation of this is trying to figure out how to create an augmented reality experience. And so one thing that we will do is we have in the scene view, we have sort of all the stuff that all the components that we need. If I double click the ground plane stage, it's going to put the ground plane stage in focus. With this camera right here, we could go through and turn off gizmos, and the gizmos just sort of gives us an indicator of where all these things are at. So you could turn it on or turn it off. In this case, I'll just turn it off, and I will use the ground plane as our connector for the augmented reality experience. And so anything on this ground plane is going to be added to the ground of the real world in AR. So when we click on the ground plane and we go to the inspector, we have the option of choosing mid-air or plane. If we choose mid-air, you'll notice how it changes to a crosshair. If we change it to plane, then it's going to be more of the ground. If we click plane finder, we want to make sure that the plane finder is on automatic, and we want to make sure that duplicate stage is turned off. Duplicate stage means that if you have something if you have whatever's on the ground plane in the AR experience and you tap the screen again, then you can add another one there. And so it creates like a whole bunch of different duplicates every time you tap the screen. We don't want to tap the screen and create a whole bunch of different duplicates. We want to be able to tap the screen and only have one. And so you can look at all this stuff like on content, place, game object. You could change all these things, and we'll dive into this stuff probably in another tutorial. But really the foundation is you want to make sure that duplicate stage is turned off. And so the next thing you want to do is you'll notice that there's an anchor stage here. And it says that there's no anchor behavior yet, but the anchor is going to be that ground plane stage. When we talk about anchor means that this is the stable point that all of our experiences are going to be centered around. And so if you move the anchor, then you move the experience. And so what we'll do is we'll click this right here. It's like a circle with the dot in it. And if you click that, you will be able to choose ground plane stage. Another way to do it is just hold the ground plane stage, click and drag, and it will drag over here. And so as you have this ground plane stage, so this one is what's going to reference our augmented reality experience. And then when we have plane indicators, we can create that stuff as well. If we look at our inspector, the plane indicator that we have is going to be a little crosshair,